Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 102 for you guys today. We're going to kick things off discussing some UFC talk inside the MMA world, and I'll be discussing my Islam Makhachev lightweight title defenses, his title reign, his overall title reign, and I'll be discussing an overall letter grade of what I give Islam Makhachev's lightweight title reign at the lightweight division. So as we know, Islam Makhachev has vacated the lightweight title. He has indicated he's moving up to 170 at the welterweight division in the UFC, and his quest to become a two-division world champion in the UFC. So we have seen Islam Makhachev vacate the title. His title reign has ended as a total of 980 days as the lightweight champion. So I'll be discussing all four of the title defenses that took place at the lightweight division. So starting off with the first title defense, that would be against Alexander Volkanovski, the fight that we saw in 2023 where he won that fight by unanimous decision. Now, if you remember that fight between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski, that was probably one of the best fights that the UFC had to offer in the calendar year 2023. It was champion versus champion with at the time, the featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski, one of the all-time greats, climbing up to the lightweight division on his quest to become a simultaneous champion, holding the featherweight title and the lightweight title. But it was one hell of a performance by both fighters. But I would say this was a back and forth exchange with both fighters slugging it out, keeping the fight standing as much as possible. And they were both landing some significant strikes for all 5 championship rounds in that fight. And even got to the point where Islam Makhachev got dropped in the 5th round of that fight by Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski displayed his power, showing his power would translate from the featherweight division up to the lightweight division, dropping the champion Islam Makhachev, making him uncomfortable in the 5th and final round. But it was Islam Makhachev who did win that fight that night by unanimous decision. It was a very close fight, but Islam Makhachev won that fight by unanimous decision. And the way Islam Makhachev won that fight, he used his MMA IQ. That came into play as long as the fight went on for all 5 championship rounds. He controlled the pace of the fight very comfortably and landed the key significant strikes to wow the judges to give him the unanimous decision victory over the challenger at the time in Alexander Volkanovski. And this ended up being the most competitive title fight in Islam Makhachev's lightweight title defenses out of the 4 title defenses that he had as the lightweight champion. So I thought this was an exceptional first opponent for Islam Makhachev, his most competitive fight as the lightweight champion, but he ended up winning the fight by unanimous decision that night against Alexander Volkanovski. Now, in his second title defense, he found himself in a rematch against Alexander Volkanovski in the main event of UFC 294. Now, this is not, if you guys go back in time towards the end of 2023, this was not the scheduled fight that we were supposed to get for UFC 294. It was supposed to be Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira in a rematch for the lightweight title, but Charles Oliveira had to pull out of UFC 294 on a 12 to 14 day notice due to suffering an injury during sparring. So, in a 12 to 14 day notice, Dana White called up, at the time, the featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski to fight Islam Makhachev for the title in a rematch. Now, it was some high stakes because everybody wanted to see the rematch one day, but for Alexander Volkanovski to take the fight on a 12 to 14 day notice, he was gambling on himself to become a simultaneous featherweight champion and lightweight champion in the UFC. But he did step up and he paid the price for it. Alexander Volkanovski paid the price for it because he got knocked out within 3 rounds of the first round of that lightweight championship fight. It was all Islam Makhachev for the 3 minutes that the fight lasted. And Islam Makhachev just had the faster reflexes. He was faster in the counter punching. And then Alexander Volkanovski's dreams completely of being a 2-division world champion, simultaneously holding both respective titles in 2 different weight classes. And Islam Makhachev closed the door on that rivalry between himself and Alexander Volkanovski, walking away with 2 key victories, 2 impressive victories against Alexander Volkanovski in the same year, 2023. So in the third title defense that Islam Makhachev had in his lightweight title run, this was actually his first lightweight opponent, that being Dustin Poirier, because remember, like I just said a few moments ago, Alexander Volkanovski was a true featherweight, climbing up to lightweight for Islam Makhachev's 2 title defenses. I'll get into that at the end of this segment, but this was Islam Makhachev's first true lightweight contender in Dustin Poirier. That was a top 5 ranked opponent challenging Islam Makhachev for his lightweight title in his third title defense. But, and that's actually crazy, fun fact also, that was actually Dustin Poirier was the only top 5 ranked opponent that Islam Makhachev fought when Islam Makhachev was defending the lightweight titles. And again, that wasn't up to him, or he didn't have the power to determine that because of some injuries that his opponent sustained in camp before he could get those fights against those lightweight contenders of Charles Oliveira, and I'll name the next guy in a few moments. But it's crazy to me that this guy has held the lightweight title for nearly 1,000 days and only fought one top 5 ranked opponent. But this fight against Dustin Poirier, I scored the fight in favor 3 rounds to 1 in favor of Islam Makhachev, where the fight did go to the 5th of the final round, but that's where Islam Makhachev put away the gained challenger in Dustin Poirier, and Islam Makhachev got the 5th round stoppage. And Islam Makhachev, for the fight against Dustin Poirier, controlled the pace of the fight, uses MMA IQ, striking abilities, and the unique grappling skills to take Dustin Poirier down in the 5th and final round, take him to the ground with an ankle pick takedown, which was pretty unique. And that choke that set up for the finish in the 5th and final round, Dustin Poirier tried everything he could to escape that submission choke, but in the end he had to submit, and his dreams of becoming a world champion in the UFC went up in the smoke, went up in the flames, unfortunately, that night. But also, when you look back at that Islam Makhachev-Dustin Poirier fight, for fans that are fans of MMA fights being exchanged, standing up, and there was some boxing skills, some boxing background that was displayed on both fighters' end of Islam Makhachev-Dustin Poirier, both showing why they are comfortable of exchanging significant strikes standing up. That was your fight as well that night. But in the end, it was Islam Makhachev that was too strong, too powerful, too smart, too quick for Dustin Poirier in this 3rd championship, lightweight championship title defense. And the 4th and final title defense that Islam Makhachev had at the lightweight division. This took place against Renato Moussaso at UFC 311. Now, like I just touched up on a few moments ago, it's not Islam Makhachev's fault that he did not fight more ranked contenders at the lightweight division that were top 5 ranked opponents, because not only was it Charles Oliveira that had to pull out of his fight against Islam Makhachev 12 to 14 days before the main event of UFC 294 and the back end of 2023. Earlier this year, it was Arman Tsarukyan that was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title in the main event of UFC 311 in January. The Arman Tsarukyan pulled out of the fight in a matter of 24 to 48 hours due to a back injury that he sustained in his training camp. It was just a mess, and I think Dana White is still pissed at Arman Tsarukyan to this day, because Arman Tsarukyan is not advertised to have a UFC fight anytime soon in the calendar year 2025. Now that might change, but there's a strong discussion of why Arman Tsarukyan wasn't inserted to get a shot at the vacated lightweight title that will see a UFC International Week between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. But as I digress, this fight between Islam Makhachev and Renato Moussaso, that fight didn't materialize into something that was supposed to be special in the first place. I mean, Renato was already on the card, and that didn't really play out in his favor because he wasn't prepared to have a lightweight title fight, wasn't prepared to be in the main event of UFC 311, and wasn't prepared to fight a pound-for-pound top 5 fighter in Islam Makhachev that night. So Islam Makhachev made short work of his opponent, did go out there and get the fans a show in the main event of UFC 311, getting the first round submission victory, but that was the final title defense that we've seen Islam Makhachev at the lightweight division. So I'll be discussing my overall letter grade based off of everything that I just discussed for Islam Makhachev's lightweight title reign in the UFC. So with that being said, the overall letter grade that I would give Islam Makhachev's 900 day plus UFC title reign would be a solid B minus, C plus if you want to be very bold, but I'll give it a B minus letter grade. I think Islam Makhachev had a solid B minus title reign at the lightweight division, holding the title for over 900 days with 4 successful title defenses, pure dominance out of 3 out of the 4 title defenses that he had when he defended the lightweight title, and picked up some stoppage victories against Alexander Volkanovski, Dustin Poirier, and Renato. What hurts Islam Makhachev's claim to be the greatest lightweight champion of all time is, yes, he had 4 successful title defenses, but he defeated Alexander Volkanovski twice. If you guys remember, Alexander Volkanovski was the featherweight champion that moved up to the lightweight division to become a 2-division world champion. Dustin Poirier was the only fighter that Islam Makhachev fought that in the lightweight division that was a top 5 ranked opponent when Islam Makhachev was defending his lightweight title. And that is, he didn't have the power to control that because, again, like I just said, Charles Oliveira had to pull out of the main event at UFC 294 back in 2023 due to suffering an injury 12 to 14 days away from the event. And then Arman Sarukin suffered a back injury, had to pull out of the main event at UFC 311 24 to 48 hours before the event began. So it sucks for Islam Makhachev, but you got to give him his credit. He still is a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC. I have him ranked number 1 right now. But in terms of being the greatest lightweight champion of all time, that has to go to Khabib. And still in my favor is Khabib because Khabib showed pure dominance over some all-time lightweight ranked fighters like Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. And when you look at Islam Makhachev, he did some great things, but dominating people in your own division, top 5 ranked opponents, it doesn't really stand out other than his victory against Dustin Poirier. So I got to call a spade and call it what it is. I will give him his credit, though, for defeating Charles Oliveira to win the vacant lightweight title in the first place in the back end of 2022. But in terms of having a dominant lightweight title defense, title reign, he had it. But overall letter grade, I got to give it a B-. But that is my thoughts on Islam Makhachev's lightweight title reign that has officially come to an end.